make one, Mom. This transmission is titled The Gray Zone. Misunderstandings in metaphysical concepts and misinterpretations and why they come about. Now, when we say the gray zone, we are not discussing the gray beings. We are talking about the idea of a blending of different concepts, a limbo state that connects to and relies upon old-fashioned and outdated paradigms in an attempt to explain metaphysical concepts that creates misunderstandings and misinterpretations. And we will provide the key to eliminating those misinterpretations, misunderstandings. Now, again, remember that there is a difference, as we have said, between the description of an experience, which is valid, and the description of the underlying mechanism that is creating that experience, which is also valid. Even though sometimes those two things can seem diametrically opposed, the idea is to simply understand the difference between a linear-based description within time and space based on concepts that you're used to thinking about, and a newer, more modern understanding of the underlying mechanisms that create those experiences. So to allow for more clarity, it would be more wise to be able to recognize and acknowledge both simultaneously. On one level, saying, I am choosing to create an experience of such and such, while simultaneously I understand that the underlying mechanism is this or that, so that I am not assuming, nor in my communications about metaphysical concepts, allowing you to assume that I believe that the emotional and experiential description has anything to do with the actual mechanism at hand that is creating or allowing me to create the experience that I am describing. So that these two things can be acknowledged simultaneously as equally important, both the experiential description and the description of the mechanism, allowing you to have the experience while not allowing anyone to assume that you necessarily think that the description of the experience explains how the experience was created or why it's happening, thus creating more clarity, more distinction between those two states so that you can use them more flexibly and so that there is no confusion about what is actually being said. So the idea, as we have given examples, of things like reincarnation, where in the old paradigm you say, well, I have lived before as this other person, I may live again as another person, instead of understanding the actual mechanism of everything exists simultaneously. I, the person I am now, have never been another person because that other person exists at the same time that I do. Even though it is separated by the illusion of time and space, to use the word time in this concept, saying it exists at the same time, means it is happening simultaneously. All things are happening simultaneously. All things existing in one single timeless moment that, when you look at it from a linear perspective, appears to be stretched out in a moment after moment after moment sort of paradigm. But again, thinking about it from the linear perspective, viewing it and attempting to describe it from the linear perspective of one life after another, while it can be created as an experience, is not a description of the mechanism, since the mechanism is that everything exists all at once. But by stretching it out in a linear sense, you can create the experience of having had these other lives, but in fact what you're actually doing from the present is simply energetically creating connections to other lives that exist at the same time, other people that exist at the same time that you do, drawing upon those experiences, downloading their experiences to aid and assist you in the themes that you're exploring as this person in this life, while they may be doing the same with you, downloading your experience and information in whatever context works for them in their lives, because they exist simultaneously with you. They are not becoming you reincarnationally. You have not been them reincarnationally. You both coexist simultaneously and are sharing information in a dynamically, constantly changing web of informational exchange, energy exchange, experiential exchange, so that each of you can form the information and rely upon the information you need to explore the themes that represent who each of you distinctly are as individual aspects of creation. So the way that you can allow yourself to move forward with a clearer understanding of metaphysical concepts is to go back to the framework we introduced some time ago called the 5 laws. If you remember, the law is, number 1, you exist. Number 2, everything is here and now. Number 3, the one is the all are the one. Number 4, what you put out is what you get back. Number 5, everything constantly changes except for the laws. So when you use that as your basic framework, as your basic template to understand any metaphysical or spiritual concept, by comparing the metaphysical concept to the structure of the 5 laws, you can begin to realize the true underlying mechanisms as opposed to the description of the experience that you are having. For example, the first law, you exist. When you have a complete and deep understanding of what that means and how it means you cannot cease to exist, even though you may change your expression, you will always be you from your perspective, experiencing things, that you cannot cease to exist, then you know that death is not the end of anything. It is simply a transformation into another state of being, be it physical or non-physical, doesn't matter. And therefore you can use that law to understand that there is really no such thing as death as you think you have understood it experientially from your linear perspective for thousands upon thousands of years. When you understand the second law, that everything is here and now, as we just described reincarnationally, exists simultaneously, that allows you to have the experience of using and viewing that mechanism from a linear perspective, that allows you to have the experience of having lived before, the so-called memory of having lived before, which is just your interpretation of the ongoing, presently existing energetic connection you have made to those other people, past or future. When you understand that everything is all the same thing expressing itself in a variety of different ways, then you know there is really no such thing as disconnection. You don't necessarily have to have the experience that you call disconnection, pain and suffering, because you know that you are always connected. Even if you create the experience of disconnection, you have to create that from the understanding that you are always connected. So you can choose how to use your connection, how to know that everything is one thing expressing itself in different ways, and that it is not possible for you to actually mechanically be disconnected from existence, but you can use it to create the experience of disconnection, use it to create the experience of disempowerment, use it to create the idea that you lack trust, lack confidence. You can use it that way, but you have to understand that paradoxically, because everything is one thing expressing itself in a number of different ways, that you are just simply using that connection in a variety of ways that could be negative or positive, mechanically speaking. When you understand very deeply that what you put out is what you get back, you can understand that physical reality is a guiding mechanism that is showing you exactly a reflection of the vibrational resonance and frequency that you are giving off with your belief systems, be they conscious or unconscious. When you understand that change is the constant within creation, you understand that the changes you go through is your relationship to the thing that never changes, which is the structure of existence, which are the 5 laws. So it is a deeper understanding and a remembering of the 5 law structure that would act as a filtering system and a template for you to compare any metaphysical concept you come across to that structure, to see what metaphysical concepts are being thought of as a reflection of an experience, as opposed to how to understand that metaphysical concept mechanically, the underlying mechanism that allows you to have the experience. So a deeper understanding of the 5 laws will allow you to compare any metaphysical or spiritual or even non-spiritual concepts against that, to know that that is the structure of existence. That's how everything works. It is always a combination of those laws that creates every experience you have. But at the same time, being clearer about what those 5 laws actually mean, going deeper into your understanding of them, will allow you to automatically start understanding and seeing the difference between an experience of a metaphysical concept and the mechanism that underlies it. Again, for example, the concept of psychic functioning or predictions. If you know, again, that everything exists now, then it is not a surprise that someone who is tuned to a parallel probability reality could pick up on the idea that that reality that you could shift to may have a high degree of energy behind it, a high degree of momentum behind it, may be the most likely manifestational reality to occur if things do not change. But understanding the 5th law, that everything changes, gives you the opportunity to say, well, if I understand that that prediction is not necessarily a prediction of the future, but a prediction, a sensing of the energy that exists in the present, because everything is here and now, then I understand that it's simply an opportunity to know where the energy lies now, and to know that in the 5th law, everything changes, that if it doesn't necessarily have a lot of energy behind it, or the energy behind it can be changed, then the prediction doesn't necessarily have to manifest if it's not something that you prefer. And by adding energy to it in a different direction, by defining it in a different way, by using it as simply a present day sensing of where the energy is, instead of an absolute prediction of something that's inevitable or unavoidable, then you can use the law of change to add energy to it in a particular way that can allow the prediction to render itself obsolete by having known what it is telling you about the present energy. So again, using the 5 laws and comparing metaphysical concepts that you have lived with for thousands of years against that framework can give you far more clarity about what the mechanical truth is behind many of the metaphysical or spiritual experiences you may have in your life. So we would always suggest and recommend and encourage you to look more deeply into the 5 laws, understand them much more clearly, and that will give you the template to carry through life, so that anytime you have a metaphysical experience, even if you want to validate it as an experience, which is fine, it will still simultaneously give you the clarity you need to understand the mechanism that goes along with it, so that you don't necessarily think that the experiential definition is a description of how those things actually work, which can cause much confusion in people who are coming into a clearer understanding or a growing understanding of metaphysics and spirituality. We thank you for allowing us to share this idea of this gray zone where these things can get blended in to provide more clarity and take them out of confusion, take them out of misinterpretation, take them out of misunderstanding, so that you can move forward with the idea of metaphysics in a more modern way, and it can serve you to create the reality more consciously that you prefer. in return for the gift you have given us of allowing us to share this information with you this day of your time. I ask, in what way may we now be of service to you? Please begin with your dialogues and your questions if you wish.
Hi, Bashar. My name is Kim. I'm talking to you from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. You talk a lot about frequencies, matching your preferences, and you use numbers like 3300 or 6600 and up. But in all honesty, I'm not really sure that I understand what those frequencies feel like. You know, when I wake up in the morning, what frequency am I at? I couldn't tell you. Or when I walk my dog, what frequency am I at? I wouldn't know, and nor do I understand what frequency my preferences are at. So I feel like I'm swimming in the deep end of an ocean on this issue. I wonder if you might be able to shed some light on this in an everyday sort of way and give me some clarity. Thank you very much. I think you're terrific.
The frequencies we give when we're talking about frequencies in the thousands, not just hundreds, but in the thousands, 333,000 as a frequency, times per second. These are frequencies your scientists don't take into account yet. This is the total frequency of your physical form in combination with your higher mind that represents the state of being you are at this point in your life, and based on the state of being you shift to in any endeavor you may undergo. As a scale, you could say that most people on your planet at this point are sort of operating somewhere around an average of about 50,000 cycles per second. But the idea is raising your frequency when following your passion can take you above 100 and even close to 200,000 cycles per second, which represents a more realized, a more fully realized version of yourself that is capable of experiencing creativity and joy and actions that are more representative of the things that are passionate in your life: excitement, curiosity, creativity, love. So the higher the frequency between the idea of 50,000 and 200,000 is going toward the range of the fourth density human to experience physical reality from a higher level, where there's more experience of synchronicity, creativity, love, so on and so forth. Above 333,000 cycles per second, when we're talking about this kind of frequency, that's the borderline between physical and non-physical reality. But again, this is a combined collective frequency between the physical being, all the belief systems, the higher mind, the theme you explore, and all this that your science really doesn't understand yet. This frequency can be discovered in the electromagnetic auric field around your physical body if you develop devices that are sensitive enough to read it. And then you can begin to understand exactly what we're referring to when we talk about these kinds of frequencies. For the most part, however, as we said, the majority of your planet is operating at a relatively low frequency, although sometimes there can be peaks up to 80,000 cycles per second. But you now have a general idea of the range of what this represents. Good day, good day.
Hello, Bashar. So excited to see you.
We are excited to interact with you as well. What would you like to discuss with us today?
I have a few questions. First of all, I want to know what are my stars' connections? Like, who are they? Can you tell me?
Most people on your planet will have extraterrestrial connections with Sirius energy, Arcturus energy, Pleiadian energy, Orion energy, and a few other things. This is quite typical for all of you because there are many different stories from different star systems being played out on Earth at this time. And therefore, many of you will have these kinds of connections in order to help the themes of exploration and play out these stories so that you can decide exactly how to move forward with them and bring them to a conclusion you may prefer. Of course, most of you also have connections to the gray beings, so on and so forth, and the mantis beings, and what are called the tall whites or Nordics, and many other beings we are not really allowed to discuss at this time. But most of you have the connections that we have said.
Okay, great. Okay, my second question is recent years, there are a few times that I had a vision and dreams about some humongous giant white whale. They're
Giant
flying
white
in the
what?
sky. Whale, like
Whale?
whale,
Whale.
WHALE. Yeah, sorry
All right.
for my pronunciation.
That's all right.
They're extremely like large creature. In that dream, I was like talking to them.
Yes.
That dream is pretty vivid, so I kind of can, while they're talking, I kind of can feel the vibration from them. And I also, in that dream, I was some type of shape-shifting creature myself. So I was wondering, like, who are they? Like,
You are communicating through your Sirius connection to an oversoul.
Wow. So
the shape-shifting aspect for you is simply an indication that you are constantly shifting to different versions of yourself through different parallel realities. And in that state, in the spirit that you were in, the state of spirit, non-physical reality, you can take on any shape. And in communicating with the oversoul, you were sort of starting to identify with that resonance of a larger point of view.
Wow. That sounds so exciting.
Yes.
Thank you. My third question is also one of my experiences. I think in the end of 2016, one day I was doing a meditation myself. I started to see a dark brown energy circle spinning in front of me, and I started to hear voices. It sounds like many individuals chanting together. But I don't understand those languages.
All right. The idea is sometimes when you can get into certain meditative states, especially now that you're exploring an expansion of consciousness, you may allow yourself to connect into portals between different parallel realities or different parallel, shall we say, versions of you in different cultures, different languages, to allow yourself to tap into that collective to amplify and magnify your ability to also get into that altered state.
Wow.
So you're doing it kind of as a group instead of just as an individual, relying on others in parallel realities going through the same experience and tapping into that energy to make it easier for you and each of them to do it in their own realities as individuals.
Wow, that's so interesting. So basically, I'm just communicating with myself.
No, it's not yourself. It's other versions. They're not you, but they are other versions that might be similar in parallel realities. Yes, you on a higher level, because everything is one thing, but you were talking as an individual person. So if you're talking about the idea of being on a much higher level, yes, you can say you were communicating with yourself because everything is an expression of one thing. But you were talking as a physical individual, and so we framed it that way.
Yeah, understood. My last question is, can you talk about Bermuda Triangle?
Yes, it's a portal, it's a fluctuating natural portal into other dimensions. It fluctuates randomly, and therefore sometimes people get caught in it, and sometimes people don't.
Wow. Does it mean originally Earth is a type of station where there's a lot of interdimensional portal open up here?
Yes, as is true with any planet.
Okay, got it.
There are interdimensional portals all over your planet. You will ultimately learn them. You will be able to map them. You will know how they work ultimately. You are some people on your planet beginning to explore these things. Does that help?
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm so great to see you. Thank you.
It is our passion and our pleasure to communicate with you as well. Good day.
Good day.
Greetings, Bashar. Greeting, everybody. I have a brief question on the Sasan Empire in the Middle East. At the start of the book, Masters of Limitation, you describe how a member of your society made contact with a member of our society in the Middle Eastern region back then and formed a relationship with those entities and individuals. I would love to learn more about the relationship, the nature of the relationship, the intention behind the individuals that made contact from your society, and any other information that you feel would be relevant for us to learn about at this time. Because of course we're all aware of all the acceleration towards open contact with all of the UFO news and everybody becoming more aware and awake around that topic. So anything that you feel would be relevant for us to know now, I would be much appreciated. Thank you. Have a wonderful day and sending lots of love.
The only thing at this time that we are allowed to share with you about that particular situation is that there were certain protocols that were given that would help to establish the beginnings of the protocols of contact in, from that point of view, the future, which is what's happening now. So the idea is that being forms an anchor point at a certain place and at a certain time in your planet's history. That is the planting of the seed of open contact that would occur in that reality's future, which is what's happening now.
Hello, Bashar.
Good day. Good day.
I'm Susie from Israel. I'm very happy to see you.
All right. Thank you for the co-creation.
Thank you about this opportunity. Bashar, I have a few questions, please.
Yes.
Can I change my instinct? My instinct, not my behavior, not my pattern. My instinct. For example,
Yes.
For example, I speak with someone and he tell me something, and my face is changed. My face, not, I don't react. My face change. So can I change my instinct?
I am not sure that you are using the correct word or definition here. We are not sure that there is a translation for what you are saying about changing your instinct. Can you be more specific?
My core belief, my core deep belief, not my behavior, not my pattern.
Yes, you can change a core belief, but if you change a core belief, your behavior and your patterns will also change.
Yes, but how I change this instinct, this...
What you're describing as an instinct is simply the result of something you believe in.
Okay.
Now, there are instincts that are connected to the physical body that are somewhat automatic, but they still can take their cue from your belief system. So again, the idea of changing your instinct or your reaction or response to something, if that's what you're actually talking about, will change if you change your core belief. The fundamental instincts that are automatic won't change because those are the ones you need to allow you to thrive in physical reality, and they're just running on automatic, so you don't have to think about them. But what you're referring to as something from your core belief will change your response or reaction to things, if that's what you mean by instinct. But we're not clear that that's what you mean.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I have a dream. I be happy if I want to hear your point of view. Lately, I have a dream that I saw my children, my hybrid children, and I play with them, and
Yes.
they laugh. And I
Yes.
laugh too. And there is
Yes.
another children, and I pick him up, and is vomit. And in instinct, I vomit after him. And there is some entities who come and check this fluid, this vomit,
Yes.
And one of the entities say to another, I don't see nothing.
Yes.
And so what is it? What happened there?
All right. Yes, all right. Understand that when you work with hybrid children, some of the hybrid children may be at different stages of understanding their relationship energetically to Earth humans. And sometimes you may run across momentary incompatibilities vibrationally that can cause a physical reaction or a purging in the system to allow the vibrations to clear out, to allow them to align to one another. After that happens, then it has been cleared out and there's nothing to see. You have already let go of all the things that are vibrationally incompatible with each other. So after that representation of letting go of those vibrational incompatibilities, then someone taking a look would say there's nothing to see, there's nothing to find, because now you have realigned, letting go of those things that were incompatible. Does that make sense? Do you understand?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Bashar, 2 years ago, when I eat lunch, I eat toast avocado, and suddenly I feel that I don't have body. And I don't understand why I eat the toast avocado. It's like I'm gone.
Yes. Well, the vibration at that particular moment allows you to transcend the physical reality to experience the absorption of the energy on an energetic level rather than a physical one. So you just simply allowed yourself to experience the idea of the inclusion of the energy represented by that food in a non-physical way. You got in touch with your non-physical self and the act of incorporating non-physical energy into yourself, but you were using the symbol of that particular food to do so.
Thank you very much. Bashar, I channeling sunshine from Shayayel, and she gave it to me her family symbol, but I'm very curious about the symbol of Shayayel. Maybe it's triangle and another triangle inside, upside down.
As long as the triangle upside down is actually inside the triangle up, facing up, that is accurate enough. There's other things to it, but that's a good start.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
In October, I will be in Egypt with a group.
Oh, all right. Have a good time.
Thank you very much. It is possible and relevant to maybe to meet you or Yael.
If it is relevant, it will happen. So you don't have to ask for it.
Okay.
Just have a good time, follow your passion, be in the state of your true being. Whatever needs to happen will happen. Nothing will prevent it from happening. If it appears that nothing happens, look again. Something may have happened, but it may not be what you expected.
Oh, thank you.
So take the insistence and the expectation off of what you think is supposed to happen and just be open to what does happen. It will be what needs to happen. All right?
Yes.
All right. Yes.
I feel very close to Sirius.
Yes.
But more and more I have a dream about Sirius. Can you tell me this connection?
Well, as we have said, many people on your planet have connections to Sirius. It's a higher level consciousness that guides humanity to help them, to encourage them to move up the ladder, vibrationally speaking. They do the same with us. It's a very high guiding light. So many people on your planet use the Sirius vibration to make connections to other levels of consciousness and to be guided and encouraged in moving toward higher frequencies.
Thank you very much. Another more sharing, please. couple months ago, I wake up in the night and I saw two grays, and it was open window like a portal. It was a water.
Yes.
They looked for me through this window, but there was in water place, and I was in my room.
Yes, well, of course, when they open a portal to another reality, you're going to see what's in that other reality, like looking through a window to another world.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Good day.
Thank you. Good day, good day.
Hi, Bashar. This is a question in regards to last month's transmission. Lots of people talk about behaviors and patterns and beliefs that are holding them back in life, and it's commonly referred to as, oh, you must have an unconscious belief or a subconscious belief that is hindering you in some way, in some negative way. And my understanding from what you said, I would believe more that that is coming from a conscious learned belief or habit or pattern that you've picked up along your physical trail. Could you please elaborate more on what is this statement? It's an unconscious belief, subconscious belief. Is it true that the unconscious mind and the subconscious mind could actually hold negative beliefs for us and affect us in our lives like that? Thank you.
What's the difference? The idea is that patterns and habits are the product of certain subconscious and unconscious beliefs, and therefore they can hold you back from being yourself as long as you continue to buy into them as being more true than the alternative. They form patterns and habits when you might have a fear-based belief that says, don't move forward, keep repeating this, keep going here, keep going there, keep doing this, keep doing that. That prevents you from moving forward. But those so-called patterns and habits are still the product of belief systems, fear-based beliefs, that you may be keeping in your subconscious or unconscious mind because the belief is convincing you not really to deal with them, not to look at them. Just keep repeating the safe things that you're familiar with instead of really moving forward. So yes, by asking that question, if I did move forward, what am I afraid might happen, can begin to reveal what those unconscious or subconscious fear-based beliefs are and give you the opportunity at least to have something to work with to help you move forward by letting them go when they make no more sense to you.
Good day, Bashar.
Good day.
I often, when I share a thought or advice, I tend to help people and help them to kind of shift from reality to reality, and they change. Yes. So I was wondering if that's my mission, or how can I discover more about what I came here to do on Earth?
You follow your passion to the best you can with no insistence on the outcome. Remain in a positive state. Constantly examine your belief systems and let go of the ones that don't work for you. It's as simple as that. Your mission is to be yourself as fully as you can. That's everyone's purpose. How you do it is up to you. Your passion will guide you in that. And that's how you be of service and of best help to everyone. Don't put any pressure on yourself. Just be yourself.
Be myself.
Yes.
Cool.
It's that simple.
So I have this question about the different types of beings, and what is the difference between light beings and spirit guides, and what role do they have? And can we also receive messages from angels or archangels?
Of course, you can receive messages from any consciousness source whatsoever, depending upon the frequency that you happen to be at. So the idea is spirit guides can sometimes be considered light workers. It really doesn't matter in that sense what you label them to be. It's just a matter of what it is you identify with, what frequency you match, and what gives you the ability to download information that is constantly being sent to everyone. It's not a matter of asking for more information or more help. It's a matter of tuning yourself into the information and the help that is always already being sent by spirit guides, extraterrestrials, angels, what have you. It's a matter of you tapping in based on following your passion. Your passion will align your vibration to whatever it is you need at that moment.
And can anyone become a medium and talk to spirit?
No, not everyone has decided that that's the theme of their life, to express it that way. You all have the fundamental potential, but that doesn't mean that everyone will have chosen to express themselves that way. It may not be part of the theme of that person's life.
But if you have some curiosity about it, does that mean
Then explore it. Then explore it.
Explore it.
Explore it. Follow your passion. Take it as far as you can. If it doesn't go the way you think, that's all right. It may not need to at this point. Sometimes your excitement comes in a particular form just because that's the form that will get you to take the action necessary that you need to take, so you'll wind up where you need to wind up to receive what it is you actually need to receive or do. So never assume that just because your excitement at any given moment comes in a particular way, that means that you have to actually wind up doing that thing. Right. That's why we say no assumption, no insistence, because you don't really know why it came to you that way. If it's going to wind up that you do the thing in the way that it came, well, then nothing's going to stop it as long as you keep following your passion and taking the action on the opportunities that are presented to you. So you don't even really have to worry about that. Just take it as far as you can, never assuming that it's going to wind up being that thing, never assuming that it's not going to wind up being that thing. Just see where it takes you, see where it leads. It will always lead you exactly where you need to be led in perfect timing to receive exactly what you need at that moment. These things work automatically when you understand how to use the formula.
Right. My wife and I went to Hawaii and visited the Haleakala crater.
Oh, all right.
And we did a meditation there, and I had a vision. I was wondering, what are the beings that I saw?
Well, can you describe them?
They were light beings coming out of a spaceship, and they walked to the native people there. I was like seeing kind of a vision, and then they had some kind of a medical device where they were able to scan the body of somebody and see through their bodies, and also
And what do these beings look like to you? Can you describe them?
I was not able to see their faces. It was all light.
Were they tall? Were they short? Were they thin? Were they fat?
I think they had long hands, and they're kind of tall.
All right. This is connected to some of the kinds of beings that have been interacting with indigenous cultures around the world for many thousands of years. We cannot go into too much information about them at this time, but you will learn more about them in your own explorations. But if you focus on the idea that indigenous cultures in different places on your planet have been interacting with these kinds of beings for a long time, you may give yourself more information about how to go forward with this understanding.
Sounds good.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah, I was wondering that if there are like simple things we can do to protect Mother Earth. Like, can you mention like 3 things we can do today, simple, to help Mother Earth?
I think this is something you already understand. Do you not understand how to allow yourself to regenerate nature? How to explore alternative technologies that do not negatively impact your environment? Do you not understand these things?
Yeah, I understand. I was wondering if there's like something we can do that has more impact than other things.
It's the taking of the action that has the most impact you can possibly have, no matter what it is, as long as it's in the direction that you're talking about. It's the taking of any action in that direction that has the most impact. Because most people talk about it, but don't act on it.
Right.
So take action in whatever you're able to take action on that you deem to be representative, not so much of protection, but of healing, regeneration. Yes. Because remember, in a sense, it's not so much that you're saving the planet. The planet doesn't need saving. The idea is that you're saving the things that live on the planet.
On the planet, yeah.
Because even if everything is destroyed, the planet will regenerate without you, unless it is completely obliterated. And then even then, the molecules and atoms will reform somewhere else into a different place. So the idea is to simply take whatever action you are excited to take that is representative of healing, regeneration, and connections to nature in a more natural way. And that will have the impact it needs to have. Because remember, you already have all the impact you will ever have. By taking the action, you're not creating impact, you're revealing the impact you already have. So reveal yourself by taking those actions.
Thank you, Bashar.
You are welcome. Will that help?
Yes.
All right. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Ha'atu, Bashar.
Ha'atu. Good day.
I am so grateful to be interacting with you today.
Our deep appreciation to you for the co-creation of the interaction. What would you like to discuss?
So, over the last couple of years, I've been remembering more and more contact dreams that I've had throughout my life.
All right.
And, well, remembering isn't really the right way to put it because I never really forgot them. It's more that I'm just now realizing that's what they were.
All right.
And I've noticed some patterns. For example, one of the things that keeps happening is that I'm on a craft and then it starts to go up and I feel this intense pressure in my head.
Yes.
And it's so strong that sometimes it kind of freaks me out and it makes me want to wake myself up.
All right. Well, it's not uncommon for you to not necessarily be completely used to the idea of being shifted to other dimensions that have a very different frequency than your own. It's something that takes practice, and you can ultimately get used to it and let go of the, shall we say, physical body's innate and ingrained protective mechanisms that allow it to think that it has to go into survival mode when in fact everything will be just fine. So it may take some practice and it may take some time, but you can get used to it if you understand that the only thing that's happening is you're being shifted, and that you can always have the opportunity to go back to the frequency that allows your physical body to know that it's just fine.
Okay. And so it's kind of strange because my physical body is asleep in bed, right? It's only my energy body that's going up, or am I actually going up physically?
But you're still connected to physical reality, and therefore there is still a physical reaction in the body to what you're experiencing energetically. And that's what is coloring your experience. It's like having an anchor on the ocean floor that doesn't necessarily allow your ship to sail away as far as it could.
Okay, that makes sense. And any suggestions as to how I might get used to that, or
up anchor?
Okay. My second question is, so at night I see these swirling ribbons of green light that are floating around my room. Yeah. And I remember when I first started seeing them, I was about 12. Yes. And it was kind of strange because it just happened out of nowhere, quote unquote. And recently,
popping out of somewhere, but go ahead.
So recently, these swirls, these ribbons of light that look like mini aurora borealises, they're starting to take shapes, kind of like silhouettes.
Yes.
And sometimes they are sending green energy right at me, and I'm wondering what they are or who they are.
You are starting to allow your senses to penetrate into higher dimensions where other forms of consciousness exist. You are penetrating into the natural world of the elementals and therefore beginning to actually see them as they're capable of taking shapes. This is what began the legends and the lores of interacting with things like fairies and elves. So you're beginning to penetrate into the natural world of the elementals and allowing them to share their energy with you, so that you can develop a stronger relationship to the natural world and to the elementals that inhabit it.
Okay, and related to this green energy, a few months ago I had a couple of dozen beings that I think were hybrids kind of pop in and out of my bedroom. And they're also glowing with this exact same color energy.
Yes. Well, again, it's the method that you're affording them. It's the route that you're affording them, because you are getting used to the idea of that particular vibrational energy of nature. You're allowing them to speak to you through it, and therefore they will take on that coloring aspect as they're using your preferred method to communicate with you.
Okay. And any specific significance for the color green? Is it heart?
It's heart energy, yes, and nature energy.
Okay. So my third question, I have met 3 individuals over the last year, all of whom feel very familiar to me.
Yes.
And even though I don't think they know each other, to me, it almost feels like they form some kind of a triad.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Many times you will meet different individuals who have made some form of agreement with you to reflect certain things to you. They could be counterparts from the same oversoul or not, but the agreement simply is that they're helping trigger certain realizations within you.
Okay. And one of the 3, my friend AJ and I are both wondering what our relationship looks like on a higher level.
Well, that's a broad question. What do you mean, what it looks like?
I'm just curious as to, how we are connected.
Are you asking if you're part of the same soul family? The answer is yes.
Okay. Alrighty.
Will that do?
Yes, thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Aveo.
Aveo.
Hello, Bashar. I am from Bulgaria, and I have a question for you, please. Some Bulgarians have the belief that if someone is spiritual, then he or she doesn't have to charge money for the services they offer and needs to provide them for free. Like someone owes them salvation free of charge, which is total victim mentality. These people give us examples, Jesus and other spiritual teachers who never took money for what they did. They say Jesus fed thousands with fish and never charged them. So, I would like to hear your perspective on this, please, and how I can answer this kind of provocations. Thank you. Aveo.
First of all, the references that you're talking about, Jesus, Buddha, what have you, these are examples of the potential in every single human being. So this is not necessarily a service that was being provided. It was a teaching example so that others could be encouraged to be like these beings, to do the same kinds of things, because you all have those abilities. So as teaching examples, of course, they are not charging for that. But if they were to provide a service, like I am going to provide you the service of healing, I am going to give you a vibration that allows you to match that frequency so you can heal yourself, and I am training you, teaching you on a different way, on a consistent level of providing the service of giving you the opportunity to do something that you are either unable or unwilling to do yourself. And I am using my time and my abilities to do this because you are not necessarily willing or able to do it yourself. Then there needs to be a fair exchange for the time and energy spent to give you the ability, or at least teach you how to give yourself the ability to do the same things. That's different than what those other people were doing as simply a one-off teaching example or a showing of what you're capable of. So it is only fair when someone is giving you their time, their energy, to give them something in exchange so that it is an equal exchange. Since you have stated that the only reason you're going to them to get this information or assistance is because you are either believing you are unable or unwilling to do it yourself. You're asking them to provide a service for you. And there must be some form of exchange to allow it to be an equal exchange of energy.
My name is Jin Yi. I'm from California. My question is about recent development on Earth that people are building distributed ledgers and then build collaboration system on top. And another concept is blockchain on Earth.
Yes, all right, we understand blockchain.
Yes, so this technology is based on ledgers, like bookkeeping over the network.
You are saying ledgers, all right, yes.
Yes. And then they are based on different consensus mechanism over the network.
Yes.
Their original design is to provide an open and trustworthy platform for the community. So
yes.
Members of the community can contribute and being served effectively.
All right. Is there a question about this?
Yes. Now, I would like to know, now many of these efforts are reaching their limitation or delay from their original intention.
Yes.
I would like to know if there are other civilizations also build similar digital trust and collaboration system.
This is a temporary fix. This is a temporary transition between the old systems and a newer system. These things are simply transitional systems that will not ultimately last. New systems will be found that are based on the people themselves, their skills, talents, abilities, by going into a reality that exhibits much more synchronicity or synchronism that allows everyone to provide what is needed at the perfect timing. And these ideas are only transitional systems to get you used to the idea of letting go of the older systems.
Understand. Next question is, do you have any suggestion on how we can learn more deeply about the sound, vibration, and resonance, and more way to use them in our life?
We are going to talk about resonance in the next transmission.
Great. That's all my questions. Thank you much.
All right. Thank you very much.
Good day, Bashar. Thank you so much for what you do and also for Daryl.
It is our passion and our pleasure.
Thank you. I've been thinking about time and space in relation to my personality self and my higher self.
Yes.
And if I think about it as a circle with my personality self around the edge of the circle, experiencing my life frame to frame, and then my higher self in the center, being able to perceive any point in that circle, if I add in the thought of alternate lives and parallel lives and alternate realities, I think about it as a sphere where there's an infinite number of edges around that sphere. Would that be a good analogy to understand?
It is a good analogy, a good permission slip that makes sense in your three-dimensional physical reality. Yes, it can work for you.
Good. And is there anything else that I could expand my thinking on with that in terms of perhaps does the sphere always expand or?
Yes. You can think of it as spheres within spheres, or you can think of it as a single sphere expanding. It's up to you to decide what works for you as an analogy. As long as you feel it's taking you in the direction that you prefer, then that's fine. It'll work.
Right. Thank you.
Yes.
And also, there seems to have been sound technology in our ancient history with the archaeology that we're finding. Is that something that we'll rediscover and be able to use? And also, do you use sound technology in your civilization? And if so, what for?
Yes, you will be able to rediscover it. We simply refer to the idea now in our technology as resonance, a vibrational frequency, no matter what the medium. But yes, resonance is the basis of anything and everything. Frequencies of consciousness, frequencies of energies that allow for manifestations to develop that are based on your understanding of the level from which you're looking. So yes, resonance frequencies can be sound, can be light, can be other kinds of vibrations, but resonance is the key.
Right, thank you.
Yes.
also, I work as a hypnotherapist, and I often say to my clients that imagination is the language of the subconscious. But would it be more accurate to say that imagination is the language of the higher mind?
We have always said it is the language of the higher mind, or at least the conduit to the language of the higher mind. But that means it also works as a conduit for the unconscious and subconscious mind as well, which is why we encourage the physical mind to use its imagination to open up and broaden the conduits of communication from all aspects of its consciousness, subconscious, conscious, unconscious, higher conscious, because that's the pathway, the conduit through which communication comes in different forms from those different compartments of the consciousness.
Right. Thank you. And then I see at the moment in the world that we are, as a collective, choosing to learn lessons through pain.
Yes, that has been the case in many places for thousands of years on your planet. Now you are learning that you don't necessarily have to, but this is the time when you have to get it all out on the table to really decide what you do and don't prefer. So things intensify during those kinds of moments, those kinds of cycles, so that you can clearly see the difference between what you do and don't prefer and move in the direction you prefer. Now, some people will not move in that direction. They will still insist, because of their belief system, on the idea that they cannot necessarily move forward without the pain. But the idea is that by learning to do so yourself and moving in a more positive direction, you act as a living example to at least give them the option and opportunity to choose something different. Not that they have to, because you don't know what their path is. Nevertheless, this is the time of choosing. So things will become more intense to make it very, very clear what the choices actually are.
And so we could choose to learn the same lessons through love?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the last question is, I understand that I'm a powerful spiritual being having a physical experience to experience that illusion of separation.
Yes.
It seems paradoxical then that my drive in this life is to remember who I truly am and my connection.
Yes, it is paradoxical, but that's the whole point. You start from some place where you have sort of forgotten who you are, so that you can rediscover who you are from a new point of view, a new angle, a new perspective. That's how it works.
And for those people that don't have that drive to experience that, they'll still learn the same lessons when they return to spirit.
Well, they will learn about them. They will learn about them. They may not learn them, but they may learn about them. And they may have a choice as to how they may wish to incorporate that experience within themselves.
Right. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Avea.
Hi Bashar, it's Tami from Israel. I wanted to ask you about out-of-body experience. First of all, do we really leave our body? Second question is why sometimes things located differently in out-of-body experience, like if we're in our house, furniture sometimes can be located differently. Why does it happen? And the last question, what's the difference between out-of-body experience and lucid dreaming? Thank you, I love you.
A lucid dream may allow you to still be sort of connected to the body, the physical realm, but you are conscious of the fact that you are able to extend beyond the physical realm and observe things from a slightly higher point of view. Out-of-body astral travel is the next stage above that, where you're truly able to focus your consciousness away from the physical reality to a greater degree, and you see things differently because now you're looking at the template in non-physical reality that may be responsible for what's going on in physical reality, but the arrangements of things may be very different because it might only be one probable reality that is representative of all the probable realities you could have chosen to experience in terms of your final arrangement of things in the physical world. Upon the idea of actual physical death, of course, you go even farther than that and can see things from a much higher perspective that includes all sorts of probabilities. But the idea is that you're seeing not through eyes, but through consciousness when you are in the out-of-body thing. And in a sense, yes, you leave your body. But mechanically, what's actually happening is you're simply expanding your focus beyond the physical realm. Because it's not that your spirit leaves the body, it's that it expands its focus beyond the physical limitations you've imposed upon your consciousness in order to experience physical reality, what you call physical reality. Because the physical body is in your spirit. It's not that your spirit is actually in your physical body, even though from a linear perspective, that's the way you view it.
Hello.
Good day. Good day.
Hey, Bashar. So, I've been going through some really weird experiences, and I was wondering.
How exciting!
Give me any education of what I'm going through.
All right. Well, give us a description. Be specific.
Okay. So, around October, November 2021, I went on an Exorcist TikTok live, and had a psychic as a guest, and I was impressed with what she did. So, I went to her for a psychic reading.
Yes.
And I told her about like all these synchronicities I've been having in life, and from that description, she told me I was psychic, and I should learn Reiki, and I could really help people. So
did that resonate with you?
Yes, but I never ended up learning Reiki. But the guy I went to go learn Reiki from, I had 2 Reiki sessions with him.
Yes.
And he gave me these Joe Dispenza meditations to try.
All right. So before you go on, what you are now seeing a pattern is, as we have described, sometimes the idea is that synchronicity will point you in a certain direction and your excitement may come in a certain form. That doesn't mean that the form it comes in is something that has to play out. It may just be to get you to go to the next place you need to go to get the information that you need.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, I suppose.
All right. Well, then there you go.
After practicing these meditations for 7 months,
yes,
there's this physical phenomenon I can regularly do where I'll be in meditation and then, I'll feel it like coming on, and then my head will sink into my heart and my body will be locked, and I'll be, consciously thinking like, what's going on? And then I can go analogously out in the dream. Like I can remember meditating, remember going into that, and remember going out in the dream, go all the way through the dream, and then it ends.
Yes.
So the first time this happened, it was a really weird feeling. And then that happened, and then I was shot up into the air. And I was on this, it looks like a stadium with portholes on the side, and it had this hexagonal floor, like glowing white, purplish, blue kind of thing.
You started to remember that you have
meditation was playing up top of my head.
Started to remember that you've had contact with extraterrestrial beings.
You think so?
I know so. So the idea is that you put yourself in a state where you made the connection between mind, body, spirit, and heart, and it allowed you to extend beyond the physical realm in your senses to give you the memory and the experience that you've had, many experiences that you've had, interacting with extraterrestrial beings, being on their ships, so on and so forth. So what you're doing is increasing your ability to expand your senses to know what's going on different levels of your life, not just the physical realm.
Yeah, so from there, I went to this transparent part of the floor, and I fell back down into my body, and I was thinking I was awake, and I wasn't. And I was like, wow, that was really weird. And then I looked outside my window, and my hill's like 30 feet down, and the silver car pulls up, and all these really deformed people start coming out of the car and climbing up my house to my window. And they get to my window, and I go to my father's room, and I was like, there's all these people coming up here. What should we do? And like, he wasn't listening to it. And then I ended up at this cafeteria, and then I woke up. I actually woke up.
Yes.
Okay, so then the second time that happened, head sinks into your heart, I noticed my bedroom door was open. I kept trying to get up, and I was being pelted down to the floor. And eventually I went up and did it, closed the door, back my body, and I noticed it was open again. And this time it's like I sprung out of my body like a cocoon, like this burst of energy.
Yes.
And so I went to go through my house, and every time I went to open a door, it was like it was trying to be closed by something. And my house was decorated with all this really weird, ancient, oriental sort of decorations.
All
I was
right.
going through my house, and my living room's covered with ferns, and I get out. It's like this effervescent blue everywhere, and there's these stone statues everywhere. And I'm going up my driveway to my mailbox, and there's this swirling purple orange storm. And at my mailbox, it's thousands of these old wooden crates. And I go to pick 2 of them up without thinking about it. And one was this white mask, like with no imperfections, glowing like the whitest of white masks you could see. And then my whole body overcame with ecstasy. And then as I came back down to my house, the meditation's playing the entire time.
Yes, yes.
And go to my house, and now there's like all these trees with these glowing bulbs and stuff. And I get to the garage door, and I try to open it. And then as soon as the guy, Joe Dispenza, in the meditation says, "Come out of this state," like I woke up.
All right.
Do you think that's an astral projection?
Partly. You're extending your consciousness, again, beyond your physical form, your senses, to experience some aspects of non-physical reality, different aspects of your own consciousness on different levels, recognition that you're part of what we call the hybridization agenda, which is the representation of all the so-called deformed people climbing towards your house, different hybrid children that were not necessarily as genetically successful as others that you have witnessed. There are many different aspects going on here. You opened the crate that had the perfect mask, which is again the idea of your true self, your spirit self, seeing yourself from that point of view. Did you open the other crate?
No, but it had that same white material showing through. I couldn't get it open.
All right. So again, the idea of the ideal vibration, your true self vibration, receiving messages from different sources, hence the idea of the mailbox, communications coming from many different sources, breaking through the barriers of your physical reality into parallel realities, seeing many things overlapping simultaneously, which I understand can be somewhat confusing, which is why you are saying it's all very weird. But remember that weird is simply something you're not used to. You are expanding your senses using these techniques, these meditations. You will get used to it, and you will start to be able to figure out what belongs where and piece it all together and put it in order and organize it in a way that makes more sense to you. But right now, you're just exposing your senses to many different sources of information, many different parallel realities, and many different things that you are a part of. So you can keep going, but understand that you can also ask for organization, ask for these things to fall into place to make sense to you, ask for definitions and help from your spirit guides to help you understand what all these different experiences are that your senses are connecting to. Yes?
Yeah. Oh, so I want to tell you about the most important of these to me.
Yes.
So, same thing, head falls in the yard, and then I was thrown down in this pristine bathroom with this snowy peak outside, and there was this little box, and it has that, that cliche where the guy's laying on the bed and then the line and his body's floating up top of it on the box. And I look at it and I was like, oh wow, I'm dreaming. And I try to exit the bathroom. Each time I'm exiting it, I come back in the same place. I'm like, oh, I'll just think up and wake up. And so I did that. I wasn't awake, and I thought I was awake again on my bed. I was like, wow, this is really weird. Something doesn't seem right. And I get shot up into this house, and there's this her race is indiscernible, but this brown skinned woman with this white and gold outfit, and she's telling me all this stuff about my destiny. And she does this yoga pose and transforms into this white monster with all these red glowing welts all over. And she tells me to beware. And then I actually woke up and I fell asleep again. Then I was in this house, this infinite house with these infinite doorways. And then there would be people coming out of them, or it would go into another dream. And then I would wake up from that dream and end up at the house. And anyway, the most important thing out of this is what I asked this one person coming out of these doorways. To open the door, and this guy's like passing me along. I'm like, you need to tell me what's going on right now. And he's like, extreme, blah, 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 powerful, blah, blah. And I like grab him by the shoulder. I'm like, you need to tell me what's going on right now. And he says, extreme teachings from the most powerful. So who is the most powerful?
Your own higher self and your spirit guides and source and all that is.
Okay. And what makes the teachings extreme?
They're extreme relative to the reality that you're experiencing. The idea is you're giving yourself an example of the difference between your expanded self and your physical limited self. The box is what you have stuffed yourself into that represents physical reality, but the body, the astral body, is representative of the more expanded version of you. These are the things you're learning. In a sense, you're attending spiritual classes in the spirit world and being taught.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm always in a classroom. I always end up in some sort of classroom.
You are taking lessons, you are taking classes on the spirit level that will aid and assist you in understanding how to transform your physical reality in a way that works for you.
Okay.
So, have fun.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I really appreciate your insight.
It is our passion and our pleasure. You are on a journey that is very exciting. Open up to the passion, open up to the excitement. Have a good time. You will receive the help you need. All right?
Thank you, Bashar.
You are welcome. Avail.
Bye.
Hello, Tadea.
Nania.
We have lots of great questions from our viewers.
All right.
Would you please tell us how people materialize things immediately by thought? I read a book about children in a monastery who were making a flower bloom and materialized all kinds of things out of nothing.
You materialize your physical reality immediately all the time. It's just that those children have been taught that they're already doing that. So it's nothing that they deem or label as unusual. So the idea is to recognize you wouldn't have a physical reality experience if you weren't constantly materializing. And it's not just about your thoughts. It's about what you believe to be true. It's based on your theme of exploration and what's relevant for that. So you can expand the relevance, just as those children have, by retraining yourself and redefining the idea and understand that you're already materializing instantaneously. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a physical reality experience at all.
Is it also possible that when we're in a momentum and there's a certain manifestation that it's about to occur, that we can actually then create the thought that, oh, I want this, and then boom, it appears as if it's suddenly appearing? But
it can happen that way in the sense of the thought being an echo of something you already know is about to happen. It's not that the thought creates it, but the thought may be representative of the fact that you are aware that you're about to manifest it in linear time.
Very interesting. I want to ask you about relationships after this life.
Yes.
Will I know my wife and children when I transcend? Will my love for them still be as strong as it is now?
Yes. And in fact, it will actually be more all-encompassing. Because again, you are immersed in unconditional love in spirit. So it's not in a sense that it's stronger, but it's broader. It encompasses more. You see more deeply into that particular being. And yes, of course, you will experience them and many others in the afterlife, so to speak.
What advice do you have for people who are grieving the loss of a pet and who can't seem to get any signs or communicate with them after their passing? Is it likely that pets will reincarnate to be close to their humans again? And why do some animals choose the experience of being abused?
So that perhaps they will evoke the compassion in humanity to make sure that animals are never abused again, by example. So it requires action on your parts when you perceive the abuse of anything, be it animal or human or any other being, to take the action necessary to make sure that these kinds of relationships don't continue in the future. Reincarnation, as we have said, in a sense, can be created as an experience, and many times it may seem as if an animal has reincarnated to rejoin the human. It is another animal, however, but they may take on the vibration by being in connection with the pet that has died and exhibiting the same frequency to the human, so the human will see the flow through, the connection of that particular frequency to remind them of the pet that is now in spirit. So the animal that is with you physically may be acting as a conduit of communication for those in spirit who have passed on, so that you know that the connection still exists. I would suggest that you drop any insistence or expectation for how the spirit animal should communicate with you, and just trust that when it is necessary, you will become aware of a synchronicity that reminds you of the animal, or any time during your daily experience you may suddenly think about the animal, then that may be indicative of communication. And as we have said with regard to human, in the idea of grieving for them, you may find that the grief is simply the way you interpret their communication, because you label it as a loss. So grief sometimes can actually be representative of the fact that the animal is attempting to communicate with you, but you're only experiencing it as grief because you keep labeling the idea as if the animal is missing. Whereas if you understood that the animal is present with you, just in a different state, and the animal attempts to communicate with you, you wouldn't necessarily experience it as a loss, and therefore would not feel it as grief.
This viewer has the question regarding communication with the cetacean nation. You had said to communicate telepathically. So I have been sending one what I call a bubble of communication every day. I include an image of nature that I've seen in my day, and I blow it towards the ocean in my imagination, where I think I get the bubbles back with images from the cetacean's day. Is this really working? And if so, who am I communicating with exactly?
Yes, it's working, and you may be communicating now and then with various random cetaceans, in the same way that you may communicate with various random humans in your course of daily events. It's not always necessarily the same cetacean. It will depend upon what cetacean needs to pick up on the vibration of the telepathic communication and imagery you have sent, and what is relevant for you to receive from a different cetacean based on your themes of exploration. So yes, it's working, but you have to be a little bit broader in your allowance of who it is that's sending to you and who it is that needs to receive whatever it is you have sent.
Thank you. What's the best way to get information from the Akashic records?
Well, again, don't think of the Akashic records as a particular place separate from any other place. Remember, everything is here and now, including information. So the idea is to simply recognize, as with anything, it's an issue of resonance. If you vibrate in harmony with a particular frequency that represents certain information, then that information will be accessible to you if it's relevant for you to receive it. Remember, anywhere you are is within the Akashic records, because again, all information exists here and now. Lose some of the idea of space and time, start really understanding and feeling that you are in the now moment and that all information is here now with you. And again, if you have a particular passion or interest in certain information, then focus on that and vibrate according to that passion, feel that excitement about that information, remain quiet and calm, and just be open to receiving it either through synchronicity or in your mind or whatever way it needs to come to you along the path of least resistance. And the information that is relevant and necessary will appear.
And some say Akashic records can be rewritten to twist history. I believe Akashic records work to keep everything that has ever been acted upon, felt, or thought crystal clear, and that they cannot be messed with. Is that true?
Yes, they cannot be messed with. What someone is referring to is the understanding that there are many parallel histories. So depending upon a shift in your own vibration, relative to the idea of the Akashic records or information that is available to you here and now, you may shift into a parallel reality that has a different history. You're not twisting the history that was in the reality you were in. You're simply shifting to a different reality that has a different history. They all coexist simultaneously.
So when you have different factions with different opinions of what is history, how does that intersect with the idea of each timeline has its own history? Because it does seem that history can be rewritten, or it is written by those that are in power, so to speak.
It depends on what you mean by in power, because everyone is in power.
Sure.
But the idea, again, is that you exist by agreement in a reality that contains the potential to shift to different histories. So you will seem to remain in one reality, but you will insist on a different memory of a different history, even while remaining in the same shared reality, so to speak. Because your definition of your reality at this time is that you can remember different histories even while still interacting with those that are in different realities, seemingly as if they're in the same reality you are in, because that's the definition of your reality at this time. Now, of course, this does not mean that sometimes people aren't fooling themselves or lying about things to say, well, it's this way or that way. You have to be honest in terms of your integrity. But the idea is that, yes, it is possible for people in your reality to experience different reality histories at this time.
And is it also the idea that if you feel like you have to force your version of history on others, that's a different energy that then would, how does that energy affect the idea of understanding your own history or the history of others?
Well, again, this goes to what we said about the idea of lying to oneself, or again, not feeling empowered by the history that you actually insist upon. Because if that is a true history for you, then you will simply naturally align with it in a way that requires no forcing for anyone else to believe the same history that you do, because you are in a different reality.
And so what is divine timing? And can we influence it with our will of mind and manifestation?
No. The idea of divine timing is simply the timing that is correct for you. So this is why we incorporate this idea in the formula of following your passion, because then everything simply happens in perfect timing. Divine timing and perfect timing are the same thing, relevant to the theme that you're exploring as the individual that you are. There's no difference, and it's not affected by will per se. It's affected by passion in terms of what you shift to experience the timing of different events that manifest according to your theme of exploration.
And what is the mechanism of remote viewing? This is fairly long, so is this a good way to have some physical experience of what it's like to be on other planets and moons without limitation of the terrestrial body? And this person is not interested in spirit or dream visit, but in an experience where to some degree you physically feel the sulfur lava flows and hear the sounds of volcanic explosions.
Yes, well, again, this goes to the idea, like the Akashic records, that everything is here and now, and it's not really remote viewing, although we understand what you mean by that linearly. The idea is to know that those other planets are here and now. And again, the more you can identify with them, the more you can resonate in harmony with those ideas, if that is representative of your passion, the stronger the effect can be of experiencing, at least to some degree, some of the physical phenomenology and manifestations that exist on those other planets. So again, losing the idea that it is actually remote and allowing it to be more here and now with you will allow you to experience some of those sensations that you're asking about.
Okay, thank you. And in regards to old understandings, how would you update our understanding regarding shapeshifting?
Again, there are many different versions of you, so to speak, you, in parallel realities. So it's the idea of resonating and identifying with those other versions, no matter how similar or dissimilar they may be, that are connected thematically to you in some way, shape, or form, and taking on those resonances and even sometimes those appearances to the degree that you can actually energetically convince others to see the differences in you as well, to share those parallel reality versions in what appears to be your reality. You're actually creating a kind of a bubble in which it's all right to shift to different versions, at least in appearance, of different versions of you in parallel realities to the degree that others can also perceive them.
In a sense, does that relate to the idea of Daryl before he was a channel and then after he was a channel? That in a sense he learned how to provide that representation of your consciousness?
To some degree, yes. Although again, shape-shifting can take it much further. If he was inclined, if it was necessary and relevant for his particular journey, he could resonate to the idea of our reality to the degree where we would actually start physically looking more like us. But that's not really necessary at this time.
And I think some people have commented that at times he does look more like you.
Now and then.
Especially when he's channeling.
Yes, now and then the resonance may shift or expand to the degree where he may take on some of those aspects. All we're simply saying is he doesn't really need to fully shapeshift into the direction or take on the aspect of us to the degree where we actually appear to you, at least not yet.
Okay. What happens to the ego, the physical mind, and the personality self when a lifetime is completed? What of us continues? Is anything lost? Or does it all get to move forward together somehow?
Nothing is lost. It all moves forward together in the same way, by analogy, that you are no longer a child, but you still retain all the experience and the memories of being a child to whatever degree is relevant for you, even though you are now adults. You can move forward as an adult, yet you can easily call upon any memory of childhood that serves you at any given moment. So it's similar in that sense. You don't lose it. The identity and the personality of the physical being remains with you. You can access it and call upon it for experiential purposes at any moment you wish, as you even move on as a spirit into different realms and realities. So use the analogy of a child still being within you as an experience to call upon, even though now you are beyond childhood.
And how can we become more secure in our awareness of life after death?
You can understand again more deeply, as we have recently discussed, the concept of the first law of the 5 laws. You exist. You cannot cease to exist. Your point of view, your literal point of view, your ability to experience from your identity cannot cease to exist. It can change form, but it cannot cease to exist. That's its quality, existence itself. Again, non-existence doesn't exist. By definition, that's its quality, to not exist. So if you exist, you will always exist, linearly speaking, because there is only one moment. It is now, and every version of you exists now. Physical, non-physical, human, extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional. Every single version exists now. So why should non-physical reality be any different? You are capable of existing as a non-corporeal being. Therefore, if you understand, truly deeply understand the first law, you will know that even at physical death, that cannot be the end of your identity. Your identity is the unique reflection of all that is that you are, your point of view of all that is, and that cannot vanish.
And if we constantly shift into parallel realities billions of times a second, do our guides and helpers follow us through each of these parallel realities, or do they change?
You have different guides for every shift you make. Again, it may appear as if they are following you, as you say, and because they are in a higher dimension, they may have a broader point of view that allows them to see beyond the physical moment limitations that exist at the clock of your physical reality. So they may be able to follow you from a broader perspective, but nevertheless, as you shift as a physical persona, another aspect of those guides is what's present for you as a new person.
So is that kind of true with the oversoul, that your soul family, so to speak, can change based on who you are at any given moment? Or
Yes.
is that more stable?
No. Anything and everything, remember the fifth law, everything changes.
Yeah, it's like as humans, we may look for stability, but from the standpoint of being in spirit and the connections we have, it's a free-flowing experience.
It's a free-flowing stability. Change is the only stable thing.
Right.
It's, again, through analogy, like walking. You have to actually keep moving to keep in balance. If you try to stay still and balance on one foot, you will fall over. You have to actually change to remain stable.
And as long as you hold someone in your heart with pure intention, can you keep this person in your reality even if the person is vibrationally, physically far from you?
Not necessarily. It depends upon what their theme of exploration is and how relevant it is for your reality to maintain a connection to that particular person. So holding them in your heart is what allows them to be who they are. And if that sometimes may require that there is no apparent connection temporarily, then that is what is required as an expression of your love for them.
So our desire for this sense of connection and permanence of connection
there is always permanence of connection, just not always on the same level. Again, you have to broaden your perspective and perception of the fact that you always have a connection, because nothing can be disconnected from one another because it's all one thing. But on the different levels where you can have the experience of disconnection, then sometimes disconnection can be used in positive ways to allow people to go on their journeys uniquely from the journey that you are on temporarily. So there's nothing wrong with that or negative about that. It's not that you're actually truly losing track of them, because you are always connected on a higher level. But you may have to allow for what appears to be temporary disconnection to allow people to have their own journeys.
So in a sense, what you're explaining is more how spirit would relate to the idea of connection, non-connection, being stable in whatever change occurs, whereas as humans, we may be insistent upon connections so that we feel stable. Is that
insistent on a particular form of connection? Yes.
I see. So is that sort of one of the challenges that we as humans are facing, is understanding how to relate to changing relationships? And
yes.
Okay, thank you. how is it that we can continue to have experiences beyond the one if we are the only ever who we are now and won't be anyone else? I'd like to feel, this person is saying, I'd like to feel secure about continuance, both for myself and my loved ones, but still feel fearful sometimes around this idea of death and what comes after this life experience. Can you give some more reassurance about that? Or
and it goes back to what we've already just said recently.
Okay.
You have to understand more deeply the idea of the first law that you exist. And your uniqueness cannot dissipate, cannot vanish. You will change, but you will not, as an identity, be able to disappear.
And you say that we have free will, but you also talk about the idea of the motivational mechanism,
Yes.
and that we always do what we think will serve us best in any given moment. That sounds like it might be deterministic in a way.
No, not at all. Because you're choosing what to believe in. So once you believe in something, it does set up a cause and effect situation in your linear physical reality, because every choice you make has a specific consequence that is designed to go with that choice. If you want to call that temporarily deterministic as a mechanism, you can. But since you are making the choice to believe what you believe and inputting that choice into the motivational mechanism, you still have the free will to determine what beliefs you put into the motivational mechanism. The motivational mechanism itself only determines, as far as the choice you put into it, what the effect will be that comes out of putting that choice in.
And so this one person is saying they like the idea of being me as a soul, but I want to experience more than just this one personality, lifetime, body, etc. How does that work?
We are not sure we understand the way the question is being formed.
I'm going to guess that the person is wondering if they can change into different people as personality in this lifetime, in this body.
To a degree. Again, this goes back to the idea of shapeshifting and goes back to the idea that you are a different person billions of times a second. It just depends on to what degree it's relevant for you to actually appear to be a different person to others and yourself. It's often not necessary to be that extreme. It's not impossible, but the question again is it relevant, truly relevant for what you need?
So is that sort of the idea when someone has a change in gender identification, and then they literally become a completely different person?
Yes, and you have the ability to do that in your physical reality as a reflection of a change and a shift that you know is true for you. So yes, you can do those kinds of things to represent that kind of change. But again, it's up to you as to how to represent that and how relevant it is for you. That's your decision.
Right, because people tend to talk about seem to have many different lifetimes in this lifetime because of, I guess, the rapid sense of change, the flexibility of the reality now.
Yes.
And that they're literally doing several lifetimes in one.
In a sense, yes. As we have said, this is the lifetime where you're allowed to actually change your themes.
That's exciting.
Yes, it is.
And what exactly are healers supposed to be doing? This person would love to hear the best alternative healing modalities to uplift their clients' souls and health of all humanity.
As we have said, a healer only provides a vibrational resonance that represents the healed state of the person they are serving. But what that person does with that vibration, whether they adapt it to themselves and heal themselves or not, is none of the healer's business. You have provided what you can provide. You have been as much help as you can be by providing the clue to the frequency that that person can use to heal themselves and uplift themselves. But that person has to be allowed to make the choice as to whether to do that now later, or even at all. It's none of your business because you have no idea what their life path is, why they came to you, what reasons they have interacted with you. You don't have any determination or say in that, other than the fact that they did come to you for a reason, but you're not necessarily going to know what that reason is. So you have to be open to allowing them to make the choices they make, to do what they will with the information and energy you have shared with them. That is your gift. That is what you can do to be of help. But to be of help, you have to allow them to make their choices. It's none of your business what they choose to do with the gift you have given them. After all, it's a gift.
And what exactly is heaven and hell after death that some people speak of?
The idea, again, in spirit is that you can imagine anything and it will usually instantly manifest. So based on the belief systems of the personality before death, it might be possible to experience positive and or what seem to be negative things like heaven and hell in the spirit world. But of course, most people, most beings would find that if they really truly believe that they might experience some form of torture, pain, or punishment, they will instantly wish that they were out of it, and then manifestationally that will happen. They will instantly be out of it. And they will then realize, perhaps, that what they believe, what they think, will be instantly true because there's no time lag in spirit. The manifestation you think of is the manifestation you experience instantaneously. So the idea of heaven and hell is the idea that in spirit, you can manifest exactly, instantly, what you believe you are all about, what reflection you believe you need at that moment, what you know you are in that moment. But I will say it's unconditionally, and the idea is that because it's unconditional, you can, if you're willing, feel the absolute unconditional love and bliss that you will be surrounded by as the natural nature of the afterlife. But you can create for yourself, if you really wish to, something less than that. But you can only do that because you are unconditionally supported and loved. Eventually, most spirits will realize that, no matter what their belief system was when they were physically alive.
So what are some of the reasons that an individual would depart in the middle of their life, so to speak? Especially when they have...
in the middle of your life. I understand what you mean by that, but if you have departed, other than the idea of intentional suicide, that is your life. That is your choice. It's not the middle of your life. You may not have necessarily achieved an old age physically, but if you have left in some way, shape, or form, apparently without necessarily intentionally causing yourself to die, then that is not the middle of your life. That is the timing you chose to go back into spirit because you have achieved your theme or exploration as you deemed it necessary when you chose to be born.
So what is the discrepancy between the person who's like full of life and they're pursuing all these exciting things and they're in the process of manifesting, and then all of a sudden they are struck down? What are some of the reasons that would, because it deceptively looks like they're in the middle of their life, but yet obviously something else is going on?
Yes, and to put it very simply, some people say, I'm going to have a life of fun and doing all these amazing things, and I want to die at the top when I'm having the most fun. That's it. I want to go out on top. Simple as that. It can be more complicated, but generally it's as simple as that. I've achieved what I need to achieve. I'm having the most fun I've ever had, manifesting this and manifesting that. I'm done.
And when it comes to like family groups, like for example, if a mother departs and she's got young children and, you know, that whole scenario where to the child, it's so unreal that could happen.
To the child, it's so unreal because that's what the child has been taught. If the child is taught differently about life and spirit and raised in a different understanding, that will be a different understanding for the child when that happens.
So parents can help their children get through an experience like that by explaining What?
How things actually are. And how the different levels, in no way, shape, or form, physical, non-physical, means that there's a disconnect and that you can still communicate. Again, it would be similar. And I don't mean to make light of this because I know how deeply affected many of you are by this. But again, it's mostly because of how you're taught to look at things. But it would be similar to having someone graduate from a university and suddenly feeling like you're disconnected for some reason. You're not. You celebrate the idea that they have gone on, they have graduated, they have reached a higher level of understanding, so they can move forward in a new way with the new knowledge that they have. And they can still impart to you the benefits of that knowledge and have you reach out to them to connect to them on a new level, in a new way, as a different person, as a different being, so that you know that there is a continuum here. It doesn't get disconnected. So use the analogy of things in physical reality that are indicative of a person simply reaching a different level in life. There is no real disconnection. It's just that you have to relate to each other a little differently because of the different knowledge levels that each of you are at, different experience levels each of you are at. There is no difference in that between that analogy and someone being in spirit when someone else is not. Depends on how you look at it.
Thank you. Can you give us some clarification on the misunderstanding of the fluid cord?
We're not sure what that person means by that terminology. If they're talking about the idea of the silver cord, this is just a euphemism for the energy connection that people have when they're out of body, meaning that they are still really alive. They haven't actually died, so to speak. They are still capable of rejoining or reconnecting to the physical experience. So if the silver cord is what you're referring to, it's that energetic connection when someone astral travels, is out of body, but their body is still alive. But we do not know if that is what this person meant by fluid cord. That terminology does not exist within the channel vocabulary for us to draw upon.
Okay. Let's see. How can we know for sure that we are in a new Earth or on a new Earth?
Because again, you shift billions of times a second to different parallel versions of Earth. That's just the way things work. You can always know you're on a new version of Earth, just as you can always know that you are a new person every single moment and have a new history every single moment, because that's how it works. Again, a deeper understanding of how things work will help you with this.
And how can we propagate the new metaphysical definitions that you've described to replace the old ones?
Live them. Speak them, breathe them, live them. Share them with others when it's appropriate to do so as new definitions, new ways to look at things. Ponder this, ponder that. How about looking at it this way? What if you looked at it that way? But live them. Act as if those are the definitions that are real for you.
So, one question here is, when Kennedy was in president, and the idea that he was going to reveal that there were extraterrestrials, had we lived through that timeline, what would it look like now?
Well, there are obviously parallel reality versions of Earth that did experience or are experiencing that particular kind of history now as their present. There are many different versions of outcomes relevant to that particular similar history in many different parallel realities. So to pick one is relatively arbitrary. Nevertheless, one particular parallel reality where President Kennedy revealed the existence of extraterrestrials wound up in the isolation of Earth from all extraterrestrials. Another version wound up allowing Earth to join the Interstellar Alliance much sooner. Another version allow there to be a change in the political. One moment.
Puma, déjalo.
All right, we are allowed to say a change in the political arena to the point where those with the clandestine knowledge of the existence of extraterrestrials became the actual government instead of the government that you have, which is mostly populated by individuals at this point in your history that don't really have any understanding or knowledge of the existence that the clandestine individuals and organizations do who are aware of our existence. Do you understand that makes sense to you?
Yes.
All right.
Good. Can you provide us with some insight to the occurrence at Skinwalker Ranch in Utah? There's evidence that seems to be significant that there were some sort of strange occurrences there. And
yes.
Is that a possible first location for open contact?
It is possible. It is a very powerful portal, interdimensional portal on your planet, one of several, that allows for the coming and going of different extra-dimensional beings of different types. So you are beginning to realize and discover and map out, in a sense, that particular portal as existing because it has a very strong manifestations that are very apparent. So it's the beginning of you really knowing, really seeing, really investigating scientifically the existence of some of the interdimensional portals on your planet.
Which comes back to what you were talking about with resonance, that if you're in a particular location, then that can help prime you to a resonance with another being, or I guess an ET being associated with that vortex.
Yes. It's a very powerful vortex that, shall we say, taps into extraterrestrial dimensions, extra-dimensional beings, parallel realities, and a variety of other things we will not go into at this time. And it's a very important vortex in that sense that it is so, shall we simply say, multinational, to use a loose term. Multiphasic would be more accurate.
And along those lines, Sedona and in particular Bell Rock, that location would provide resonance opportunities for what?
Some similar things, but again, it's mostly geared to the idea of magnification and amplification of the vibrational energies you bring into that vortex in order to have more deep self-investigations of what beliefs you are holding on to as true. So in a sense, it's good practice in Sedona as a vortex to learn how to align with different vortex energies, interdimensional energies, before going into some vortex like Skinwalker Ranch, which is much more powerfully aligned to actually show you a reflection of what you're bringing in with you in an uncompromising way, without the allowance of being able to shift.
And locations like, say, Machu Picchu, where there seems to be a lot of extraterrestrial activity.
Yes, well, again, there are these dimensional vortices all around your planet where it is easier for traffic to come and go, so to speak.
So the ones that would be, let's say, particularly aligned with nature energy, would they may also be ET kind of related energies?
In some cases, some of them are a little bit more heavily weighted in terms of nature or elemental beings. But yes, all of them can be used depending on the nature of the extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional energy to make connections to those beings. But different vortices are weighted in different ways that makes it easier for you to make a resonant connection to different things, sometimes more than the idea of an extraterrestrial connection, because it's more relevant for you to connect to an elemental or some other nature spirit.
So on the nature side, and particularly for those that are interested in Willa and her timing, what are some locations that would be heavily weighted in the nature direction that would be complementary to Willa's reality?
The idea of some of the crop circles in Glastonbury, and also, of course, many locations in Ireland. With regard to your United States, it's more about the idea of Shasta.
And redwoods?
Yes, of course. Any nature location, any forest will have some vortices that are connected to the idea of the elementals. But you were asking for the more prominent ones.
Right, right. And another person was sharing with me that they had an experience in Alaska, in a very, very remote part of Alaska, where they were interacting with, I guess, Sitka pine, or that the forest was so magical in that particular.
There are many vortices also in Alaska, and one thing that can be said is in many places upon your planet, whenever there is a city that is a prominent city, it's mostly because either intuitively or unconsciously, people have gravitated to a vortex in order to create that city, and that's one of the reasons why they settle in that place. But in terms of a natural vortex, a natural spot in Alaska, you will find that the Denali forest is one of the most powerful.
Wow, okay. And also a question came up about the concept of, with resonance, you can obviously talk with beings, interdimensional, etc. But also on the idea of plants and even microscopic things like viruses, that you can communicate with those beings also. And so this leads to the question of regarding COVID and individuals who have talked about having contact with the virus itself, the consciousness of the virus.
Yes.
And in both cases, even though one had a frightening experience and the other one had a more loving experience, the end result was when they woke up in the morning, they no longer were ill.
Yeah. Again, this can be done in many different ways, and especially some of the plant teachers on your planet can avail your consciousness to communicate with life forms such as that.
Can you explain a little more about why one person would have a negative and one would have a positive, but the outcome was still the same?
It's either what they needed to experience or what they brought in with them in terms of their belief system unconsciously.
And the difference between people who receive messages like that and the vast majority of people who don't seem to have any kind of experience like that?
Well, there are many different reasons. But in general, most people are simply not in tune to those kinds of things or don't believe that such experiences can happen.
And the major
operate more out of fear.
Okay, and like the major shifts that we've gone through as a planet due to this particular situation, is that level of nature talking to us about what we need to change or helping us become aware of what we need to change?
Yes, exactly so. If you look at it that way, if you understand the overall message that there are consequences to the choices that you make. So choose wisely.
Perhaps we feel like we've accomplished sort of dominance over science in a sense, or many of the things that in our earlier periods of history we were not able to cope with, like pandemics and things like that. So maybe our listening is different now because we've achieved a sense of competence in dealing with these things?
Well, when you say we, again, remember, not everyone perceives things the same way. So let me make a statement, a comment. One of the things that would be perhaps advantageous for your species is to understand in your ancient, shall we say, for now, as an example, in your ancient biblical terms, when you read that humanity was given dominion over the earth, you have mistranslated the word dominion. What you were assigned to be is caretakers. So dominion over the animals and the plants and so on and so forth does not mean that you control as you wish, as you will. It means that you take care of it, that you are the tenders of the garden, you are the caretakers. That is what having dominion on the earth means, that you are in harmony as nature and a caretaker of the world. So absorb that, and many things will become much clearer as to why things are happening the way they are happening.
Right, and that seems to interact with the idea of scarcity of resources, that there's so much competition amongst the human beings for what they consider scarce resources.
It is only a belief system that makes things appear scarce.
So that goes hand in hand with changing our relationship with the planet.
Yes, and changing the relationship with yourself.
So one person here was asking, can things like emotions and negative beliefs be passed down through epigenetics or epigenetics? If so, is there a way to clear the hereditary negative beliefs that your conscious mind is unaware of?
It's not that they are literally passed down, but the genetics can create a predisposition based on the theme you've chosen to explore to absorb the idea of fear-based beliefs from those around you, such as your parents or your society or your schooling or your friends. They don't absolutely determine that you have inherited it, but you may have inherited the predisposition to absorb those things. And therefore, it still comes down to what you choose to believe by self-investigation and knowing that you are completely empowered to decide what is true for you.
So when an individual is in the womb and they're experiencing the environment as being whatever their mother is experiencing,
yes,
what kinds of things are they absorbing during, let's say, the last 3 months of the pregnancy?
Whatever is more relevant to the theme that they chose to explore by having chosen that individual to be born to. Remember, that's a choice too. And if they have a certain theme they would like to explore, they're going to choose an individual that's going to give them at least the possibility of predisposing them to absorbing certain things that will help them on their journey, either to change them, to overcome them, or to live with them. There's no accidents in that.
So a child that would be born to someone, let's say, that's bipolar, where they experience their rage and they also experience the loving side, I suppose.
Case-by-case basis, that's all we will say on this subject. Take it as a case-by-case basis. There are as many reasons for children and spirits to choose individuals like that. I cannot give you one generalization that works for all.
Okay, so you've also spoken of our planet as being a living entity. In recent years, we've seen what is, from our perspective, extreme climate and disease events. Can it be said that we are witnessing Earth's autoimmune system countering the human infection, and that is endangering its well-being? So, as you once told us, your people's name for our planet is
Ananika.
Okay.
Ananika.
That was the other thing I wanted to know, the Ananika, yes.
I wouldn't necessarily think of yourself as an infection. That doesn't serve you, really. And the idea is that the Earth can get along fine without you. But the idea is that you are creating one atmosphere, one biosphere, one idea here in conjunction with the Earth as expressions of nature from the Earth. So the idea of what you reflectively see as the Earth's illness is your illness of belief systems. So the idea is for you to see those reflections as a way to guide you back into balance and back into harmony within yourselves. In the unlikely, shall we say, event that you exterminate yourselves, become extinct, the Earth will move on without you. But the Earth and you have made, in a sense, a higher agreement to have a certain experience that allows you the opportunity to reach a higher plane of existence in harmony, to play out certain stories in a more positive way. It's up to you to use it that way, but what the Earth is doing is reflecting the imbalance within humanity.
And so those that
the Earth itself is diseased. It's acting as a reflective guidance for you to bring yourself back into balance.
So those that chose to be here on Earth in a situation where most of our recorded history, there are some kinds of wars going on somewhere. So one could say humans appear to be very warlike beings. So choosing to incarnate in this kind of a reality with that level of extreme behavior means that the soul has decided to go on this adventure of transformation.
That's one way to look at it. Again, don't generalize.
Right. So, but it is a master class in that respect because of the level of challenge.
It is a master class in transformation. That doesn't mean everyone will graduate.
And is global warming a real thing? Does the recent extreme weather come as a result of human activities, or is it the result of Earth's magnetic field shift?
It is a natural cycle that has been exacerbated by human activity technologically. However, as many people on your planet have realized, it's a little bit more accurate to simply say climate shift or climate change. Some parts of your planet will become warmer. Some parts will become colder. Some parts will become wetter, as I think many of you are now discovering with all of your flooding. So the idea is go for the idea of climate shift or climate change rather than just global warming, which only addresses certain parts of your planet. It is a natural cycle, but it wouldn't be happening now in the way that it's happening at such an accelerated pace if humanity hadn't accelerated it with the technological pollution that you are now putting into the biosphere.
Okay. And as a quasi-physical being, what would your atoms look like under a microscope? Would they appear ghostly or solid? Do you pass through liquids such as water without feeling it, or is there a certain part of the H2O molecule that you can sense? And could you transfuse your quasi-physical atoms into a physical being?
Yes, the atoms would appear somewhat ghostly to you. We can pass through solids and liquids, but the idea is that we can also resonate to interact with whatever portion of them serves us. So it depends upon what frequency we choose and the theme of exploration of what material we are interacting with that determines how we interact with it or whether we interact with it at all. It depends upon the type of physical being in terms of the idea of sharing our particular atomic structure with them. In a way, for most of you on your planet, for us to introduce the idea of the quasi-physical particles into your physical material body would probably create a sensation or an experience similar to what you call spontaneous combustion.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
It can be.
That's like the ultimate hot foot, huh?
Yeah. Or the ultimate hot seat.
How did the Greys choose the human subjects to create hybrids? And was it merely a genetic component they were looking for in people with certain life experiences, or was there some other alternative ideas?
It is that to some degree, looking for certain genetic markers, but in many cases, the Greys are choosing those in a parallel reality that are representative of the family lines in their parallel reality.
And do any of the 5 hybrid races have all black artificial lenses directly on their eyes to protect them from certain environments?
Yes, the Greys do, and the tall Greys can, the Mazzani, sometimes use that technology.
So our version of Greys with big black eyes may actually be like they're wearing sunglasses?
Yes. And it's not just sunglasses. They are a technology that affords them information as well, much in the same way that some of your heads-up displays do.
Cool. And can you expand on how our familiar symbols and archetypal representations might be used as a third reality for ETs to communicate with us through?
That is a subject we will cover at another time.
Okay. And were there certain genetic aspects that the Greys were looking for when they chose certain humans? Or is it more of that people volunteered because they wanted to transform and they wanted to participate?
Both.
What would be some of the attributes, though, that a new human...
Not at this time.
Okay. If your civilization lives without resistance, why do you experience death at all? Since death, in a sense, is a release of resistances accumulated throughout our lives. And once your civilization shifts into fifth density for good, and thus into total non-physicality, does that mean that you no longer experience death?
Why do you go swimming and then come out? The idea is not always about resistance in the way that you mean it. The idea is to have an experience and then absorb that experience into your greater self. You go swimming, you come out of the pool or the ocean to go on with life in a different way, to experience the land instead of the water. So we experience physical reality and then go into non-physical reality for a variety of reasons, just as you do. It's an experience to be had. It has nothing to do with the idea of just giving up resistances. That's an extremely limited way to look at the idea of life and death.
Okay, and like if you look at planet Earth, the things that people are passionate about or have experienced as being really fun seem to go through a lot of borders, you know, and
did you say
are common. Well, the idea that we have many common things, like there's a lot of competitions humans seem to enjoy. There's sports. There's all kinds of ways that humans entertain themselves, plays, acting. So
yeah.
When in your civilization, being at such a high frequency, what are some of the things that really give beings joy?
What I'm doing gives me absolute joy, or I wouldn't be doing it. So there are many things. People that relate to the idea of nature in different ways, people that relate to the idea of games in different ways, people that relate to the idea of communication with other beings and spirits in different ways, people that relate to the idea of communing with animals in different ways, many different kinds of things.
Smells.
There's a wide variety of experiences and passions on my own world as there is on yours. It's just that many of them take place on different levels in different ways and are expressed differently.
And it's interesting because there's a lot of similarities in terms of the things we enjoy and the way we express them, and then that would be something you would also express, but just in a more expanded way, perhaps.
Perhaps, not always. Sometimes we get joy out of doing something in what you would consider to be a relatively normal way.
Okay.
Depends on the purpose for experiencing it. Just as in my training as a first contact specialist, I did have to go through a period of learning about the idea of languages as you use them to understand the form of communication. That was a joyful experience, even though we don't in and of ourselves use our ancient language much anymore. So we chose to have those particular experiential limitations in order to understand the joy of the experience of having different languages, so we could relate to the idea of communicating with civilizations such as yours that use different languages.
Can you fly without any kind of mechanical assistance?
I can levitate. I can teleport. It's not flying in the sense of something like what you would call Superman.
The kinds of things that humans actually dream about and then think, oh, I really wish I could do that here on Earth.
Yes, and eventually you may be able to, eventually. That is your way of expressing the idea of motion. We have a different way of expressing the idea of motion.
Speaking of levitation, there's a game that children play at summer camp where someone lays down and then everyone puts like one finger on each hand underneath the person, and then they simultaneously are able to raise the person up.
Yes.
What is the mechanism? What's happening there?
There are several things at play. One, the power of belief, making a game out of it to make it easier to do. Two, there's a lot you don't understand about physical leverage that you need to explore. Three, the idea of actually allowing an individual to not weigh as much by making shifts in the gravitational component in a limited space. There are many things going on.
That is very magical, but it also sort of demonstrates the idea that we give ourselves opportunities to experience alternate realities as children. So we know that physical reality is not as fixed as it appears to be.
Yes. So this is why making a game out of things, as children do, can actually be the most important thing you could do to understand certain principles about how you manifest physical reality.
I've heard there is a wave of consciousness which permeates the cosmos, and living creatures are made sentient by contact with it. Does such a wave exist? And if so, what can you tell us about it?
You're simply talking about all that is and the way in which every single reflection of all that is relates to it. Some will express sentience in a different way than you would recognize. Some will express it in a way that you will recognize. But everything is a product of sentiency. Everything is conscious and uses consciousness in a different way. But you're simply talking about the wave of existence, the vibration itself of unconditional support and love that is the frequency of existence itself and all that is.
Lovely. And back to the idea of resonance.
Yes.
If an individual wants to make contact with a specific being, a specific race, that kind of idea, what is it that they can do to really tune into that resonance in terms of actions they take physically?
Be absolutely passionate about making that connection and dropping every single ounce of insistence about how that connection needs to be experienced simultaneously. And then go about your life taking the actions, whatever you can, whenever you can, that are indicative of having already made that connection.
So, for example, if you want to connect with trees, then you would immerse yourself in the physical environment. And then I guess the next part of it is I guess you learn everything you can about that particular tree. Or
if you are passionate about it, you would absorb knowledge like a sponge. You would seek every opportunity to learn more. This is one of the main driving forces of our civilization, curiosity.
And inspiration.
We are insatiable. Insatiable in our curiosity and our inspiration. You have to become insatiable.
Well, thank you for sharing with us the states of being that allow us to resonate with your frequency and have these conversations, as well as all the other opportunities that are actually available to us on this planet.
It is our passion and our pleasure to do so. We remind you now that it is important in understanding many of the metaphysical and spiritual concepts you are exploring to allow yourself to dig more deeply to ponder and think about more deeply the idea of the 5 laws, and allow yourself, whenever possible, to really practice getting to understand them more clearly, more deeply, as we are giving you opportunities to do so now. So enjoy your opportunity and instruction. We thank you, and we will now move forward with this transmission. And during this particular instruction of the 5 laws, again, allow yourself the time, the space, the depth of pondering them and thinking about them and musing on them in childlike ways, in enjoyable ways, but allow yourself to absorb the depth of them, the understanding, the clarity necessary to use them as a framework for any metaphysical experience you may know.